Hi everybody, I am Ann Urog and I'm here to talk about our Module 5 for this class, which is about evaluating formal and informal, culturally responsive, and accessible assessments. So we were given 6 resources to synthesize and to pick out their main points. So our first resource here is over assessments versus evaluation. So assessments first show the student learning. So this is gathering and interpreting information about our student level of their learning towards their learning goals, identify their weaknesses and strengths. It also evaluates the teaching methods to see if they're working and if they're not. And then it will help drive our student learning and then to drive them to also study. Next, we have evaluation. So evaluation tends to focus more on grades and it measures student progress towards a standard. Our next resource here is about assessment for learning. So it's measuring, observing the process to judge or determine the value to a standard. It typically more focuses on grades. It compares student achievement to others. And then it's an ongoing management and learning tool throughout the different grade levels. Next, we have culturally responsive assessment practices. So this is students use their strengths and curiosities to extend their literacies. It's relevant to students in their home life. You also assess the students to get at what they know, to get to know them and what all the stuff that they have learned based from their background. And then getting to know your students and who they are. Next, we have culturally relevant performance assessments. So this is where we can draw connections between learning and our own experiences, serving diverse student populations, reflecting learning to become engaged within communities, and then recognize and celebrate students' personal experiences. So next we have challenges of measuring well-being in schools. So this is a positive sense of self-belonging, promoting a well-being, and then measuring is challenging for well-being and can be complicated. And then there's a challenge of adaptation over time with well-being. And then teachers tend to incorporate techniques of the sense of belonging within their classroom already. Next we have, or our last one should be an ongoing quest for culturally responsive assessments. So in this, it talks about the Western style of education and all the different various ways and techniques that are within it. And then how assessments can be destructive to students because they too have too high of a stake, which could be like graduating high school or even getting into college. It's teaching and learning our cultural processes for everybody. And some cultural processes are usually based on values and norms, which then come into the culturally responsive assessments. And then language becomes a big part of that, even just a language barrier or knowing how to address the language that is at home for our students. So our next thing was to evaluate. So we're going to evaluate practices, resources, and services that we have here at Hope Schools. So some of the stuff we have are our athletic teams, our student organizations, our one-to-one Chromebook ratio for all of our students pre-K through 12, our Wi-Fi throughout their entire district, our mentor and pride groups. So our mentor groups are in our 8th through 12th grades, and then pride groups are in pre-K through 7th grades. We also have SEL groups, so students are in basically their grade level groups, and they get SEL lessons that way, so that they are getting the same lesson and that for each grade. We do also offer credit recovery classes and programs for students who didn't quite pass the test or class the first time. It gives them a chance to take it while still staying with their class and not being put behind. And then the last thing I have on here is our chances for family learning nights. Actually, we have one coming up. We have a family literacy night coming up next week where they talk about various authors and parts within a book, and it kind of gives the students an opportunity to show their parents what they're learning within school. So what do we propose for practices, resources, and services here at Hope? I'd like to see more of a mixed pride and mentor groups. I think it's great as a mentor myself to see 8th through 12th graders, and I get to see them till they graduate. I'd also like to see some of the lower level kids. I like my interaction with them also, and I think it'd be cool to see them intermingled. More opportunities for non-academic activities throughout our entire school. Some of those social skills and those soft skills that students could learn. More PD and training for staff to learn more about digital literacy or even to use the technology more effectively in our classrooms. ESLO and dyslexia training, I think we need more of. Even though we don't have a very diverse population of students that speak beyond just the English language, we do have 2 students that do speak both English and Spanish, and at home they hear just Spanish from mom and English from dad, and so it definitely becomes a barrier, and I think this has been a way to open up eyes to that. And then putting more of an emphasis on our student IPS and our electronic career portfolios to have students have more buy-in to that. The electronic career portfolio will basically turn into a giant resume for students in the future that they can take and show future employers or when they're trying to get into college. Okay, so next we have assessments at Rural Vista / Hope Schools. So Rural Vista is our district and I am just at Hope Schools. So assessments used would be state assessments, the ACT, FastBridge or IXL. Ones that are standardized are content or grade level assessments based on our KSDE standards. And then our norm reference would be like FastBridge. Under FastBridge, we progress monitor math, science, and SEL. SEL is once a semester. Math and that's supposed to be math and reading. Our progress monitor every other week. And then IXL diagnostics. So we use IXL for both math and reading. And then formative and summative. So this would be our content and grade level assessments. Also FastBridge, and then our IXL again. So what is required? All of our summative assessments are FastBridge screeners. They all differ between the grade levels and how the frequency that they are taken. Some gaps that we have is analyzing the data for our students. I think FastBridge, like this is our first year with FastBridge, and I think it offers a lot of data collection for our staff and our teachers to make sure that our students are on track. But I do think it can be overwhelming, and I think that is a gap in order for us to analyze our data. Inconsistency for our grade groups. What I can say for some of our students here is that like next year we're almost replacing our entire high school staff, and so I think it becomes inconsistent in ways of teaching and how teachers do teach for our students to learn. And then our student buy-in, and then lastly on here another gap is our frequency. So there is different frequency from kindergarten to 12th graders and how much they are progress monitored in FastBridge. Next we have plan and quality. This is making sure that students are at or above grade level in math or reading, and then in the SEL part of FastBridge it does show red flags in certain categories for students. And then evaluation of results. So this could be staff meetings, grade group meetings, MTSS groups, and then our DLT, which is our district leadership team. And then our culturally responsive assessments. So this would be having inclusive classroom environments, ESSO, and then screeners for all of our students. And then lastly, here is my APA reference for all of the sources for this assignment. Thanks.